Hey guys, thanks for checking out the channel. Tobin here with you and appreciate you guys tuning on in. If you could subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Get a notification every time we put up a new video. Try and put up a couple a day. Talk a little Dolphins, talk a little Fins. Who knows what shenanigans we could dive into. But I want to get into this. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, he was on a podcast and was basically throwing up the white flag in Milwaukee. It was very much, it felt like a laying the groundwork for goodbye. Not the first time that he has done this offseason. And it really goes to show the Miami Heat did a number on the Greek Freak. I mean, beating that guy in the first round in just an incredible series, just an unbelievable display by Jimmy Butler. And you know, it's crazy because it's like the Heat going to the finals, it almost buries what an impressive accomplishment that was. The 56-point game, one of the greatest sporting events I've ever been to. Jimmy Butler, you know, bringing on the crowd like a pro wrestler. Bam Adebayo, absolutely sensational in Game 5. I mean, they really were tremendous in that series. And something happened. I mean, like something happened out of that series with Giannis. First of all, I think that he got ridiculed pretty hard for like the first time ever. Like they tried to pull some crap with Nike with that whole, you know, there is no failure. There's only steps to success and all that. And I was like, well, that tone seemingly has changed this offseason, hasn't it? Because he goes on this podcast, 48 Minutes, part of the Believe podcast network, and was basically like, listen, I'm a Milwaukee Buck, but more than anything, I'm a winner. And just put it out there that if it is not, he loves Milwaukee, but if he doesn't feel like the roster is up to snuff, that he'll bolt. And he's already put cold water on the idea that he's going to sign an extension. So he's going to have, I guess, that flexibility. He's putting that ultimate pressure on Portland, so he's not, I guess, in a Damian Lillard type situation. But it's so funny, man, the ramifications that Miami Heat playoff run had this offseason for a few reasons. You know, we've talked about in the video yesterday just like how Adam Silver basically had to rewrite the rules to make the regular season mean something with a cockamamie in-season tournament and fining players for resting because the Miami Heat basically showed regular season, not that important. And so they have to basically bribe everybody to go out there. The other ramification of that, of course, has been with the Miami Heat's run, Damian Lillard wanting to come to the Miami Heat and looks at them as the best opportunity and the best fit for him to go win a championship. And now the other domino that has fallen from that is Giannis has gone from there is no failure to if you guys fail in putting a team around me that can win a championship, I'm out of here, dude. I am not going to run into the Miami Heat and rub my head against the wall time and time. And I do think for Giannis, he does, and I'm sure has to look at Miami being able to get superstars and get people attracted to his destination and get a little frustrated. Now, to Milwaukee's credit, I will just say for any Bucks fans that are salty tuning in, first of all, you know, Heat in 5. Second of all, their organization did make the move. They made the home run swing in getting Drew Holiday, and it got them over the hump. It's an interesting situation because typically, we see, like Dame, organization just kind of runs out of steam, runs out of options. They decide to reboot, time to trade the star. They've done it with Giannis, but I think you can kind of look back. Giannis is probably looking maybe a little bit like LeBron did at the end of the Heat's run and thought to himself, is this franchise going to have it right next year? Is D Wade going to be healthy enough? Is Chris Bosh enough to be the second wingman, or should I go somewhere else and up my PR by going back to Cleveland? And I think for Giannis, it's interesting because I think for an MVP, a two-time MVP, a champion, gets a lot of NBA TV playoff games, and I'm sure there's some Tobin in Milwaukee who's like, what is this disrespect that we get? Listen, you and I can relate on this, Milwaukee, where it's like you think your guy, your star, doesn't get quite the love that they deserve. And I do think that Giannis has to be looking around and looks at a New York, an LA, and possibly thinks to themselves, all right, if I go here, what does that do for my brand? What does that do for my quality of life? Like, it's noble and nice to live in Milwaukee. Seems like a lovely place, but it is Milwaukee. It's not this exotic city. It's not this city with much flavor. And I think that Giannis probably does look at living on the beach, living on the coast, living in a big city. And with his star power, this is not like a guy like Nikola Jokic where he's in no commercials, wants to go live with his horses. This guy likes being star. He likes being the dude. And so I do wonder, has a signature shoe. This stuff is very pushed by Nike. Does he want to be in Milwaukee for the rest of his life for real? Doesn't sound like it. And the other thing is, like, what is Milwaukee really going to do? It's such a tough spot that you put them in, and we have to win a championship or not, because really what it comes down to is Giannis has to be the best and the best player in the league, bar none, and has to lead them like Jokic did to get them back there, because it's not like they don't have a stacked deck. It's not like they don't have, a great defensive player, a great all-around player in Drew Holiday. Not like they don't have a sharp shooter in Chris Middleton, or, a defensive nuisance in that giant ostrich Splash Mountain. It's not like they don't have pieces, but I think that with the Heat hitting them with that haymaker last year, and especially with him maybe not being at full tilt, him getting injured, them not being able to really step up around him to even get the best of this quote unquote 8 seed that had all these undrafted guys. How does he not, think in his head, how the hell did this Miami Heat team break us? And how, if we can't get over the hump in the first round, if we were to face them again, or whenever we do match up against them, how am I confident that what I have is good enough to win a championship when we just didn't have enough and we're all going to get older? And especially they're all going to get older. So now from the Heat's perspective, here's what's interesting. This would be a guy, if it wasn't for the Damian Lillard talk, where, me, I would be throwing on, the captain's hat and picking up the whale phone immediately if I knew there was any rumblings of Giannis Antetokounmpo bolting from Milwaukee. I got my hands full with Damian Lillard right now. I can't handle that. Secondly, the Heat we know the Heat's interest has been there in Giannis before. We thought back in their finals run when they bounced him in 5 in the bubble that there was maybe going to be a window there where Giannis was going to bolt. He decided to stay and ended up ultimately winning a championship. But will that come about again? Bam and him do share the same agent. Not a guy, he's mentioned that he doesn't typically work out with a lot of his opponents, but has in the past, I believe, worked out with Bam a little bit, and has a lot of admiration for the guy. Not surprising. Seemingly every superstar does. I don't know if it's the greatest basketball fit in the world with Giannis, Jimmy, and Bam, but that may just be one of those where you're like, F it, let's roll it out there, baby, and see what happens. We'll figure it out as we go. But this definitely is an interesting thing that the Heat did such a number on Giannis, and he talked about this in the interview that he's very bitter about how that. I think that was his description. He's very bitter about how the season ended and how the Heat were able to do that to him, and now you see him start really taking stock of what Milwaukee's future is. I'm sure he'll run it back and play his ass off. I'm sure they're going to have a really good record this year. But when they get into the playoffs, they don't have Budenholzer. So that could definitely, but they do have a first-year head coach. It's not like they went out there and they got, this. It's not like they got Popovich coming to take over. We don't know. And we've seen with these young coaches, sometimes they're great. Sometimes they seem like, but then they seem, like in Boston, it seems like a guy's in over his head a little bit. So I am going to be very, very curious to see what this is. And from the Heat's perspective, I don't know if they'll get in the game for Giannis, especially if the Dame thing happens. That's kind of your core, Dame, Bam, and Jimmy, if that happens. They also, I don't know what the reaction will be of Giannis leaving to go to a team that beat him and has beaten him multiple times in the playoffs and beaten him handily in the playoffs multiple times. That's also going to be an interesting dynamic to look at all of this. So we'll see, man. But anyway, happy birthday to Jimmy Butler, 34 years old. That 56-point game was absolutely incredible. And I cannot wait to see this guy play basketball again. 34 years young, plenty in the tank for old Jimmy Buckets, and hope he has an awesome one, either making coffee or drinking wine or playing tennis or whatever the hell, world traveling, because that dude is awesome and definitely is been a marvel since coming to the Miami Heat.